Yo, what's going on, guys? Kryptic TMG back with a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about the Silver SR Prototype Trophy race, which of course consists of LMP2s and GT3s. It is a race that is ×2 on the fuel, so you have to save fuel to do the nose stopper, or you have to really ring it to do the pit stop and try and come out ahead. And guys, I'm going to tell you why, in my opinion, this race is not really fair, and I will show you guys justification for my opinion in a minute. And yeah, it's one of those races, man. It's very fun to do, but I feel like with some little tweaks, they could get this absolutely spot on. So let's get stuck into the video. So I actually had quite a good quali session. I actually qualified second, but I knew that going into this race, I was probably going to be the only front runner that was actually going to attempt the pit stop here. So I already know I've already done this race a few times previously, and it's definitely a lot faster to do the no stopper. But just for the sake of this video, guys, I wanted to show you what it is like and what pace you would have to do to even warrant doing a one stopper and trying to be successful. And I can already tell you now, guys, it is extremely difficult to do the pit stop strategy in these races and get a good result. A lot of it is going to depend on how strong the field is, and of course, you know, if you're racing against people that's not quite your pace, then you've got every chance to make the pit stop work. But if you are racing in a race against people who are similar speed, literally there's just no chance you're ever going to make that pit stop back. And that's what I really want to talk about, like why it's kind of not fair, and the things that they could do to maybe alter that and help it along the process to make the race even better. Because I do like the idea of the strategy, I just don't really like the way it's put together, because it is definitely very one-sided. So first things first, I've already started off. I'm doing 42.7. You can see Carl behind me, he's doing a 44.1, having to save fuel. But still, the gap between us in terms of lap time is not massive. You know, one of the things that I think helps the people that do the no stopper is the fact that we actually have LMP2s in the race, because the early laps, a lot of the time, there's always carnage and you can't actually completely get away sometimes. So your first few laps, a lot of the time, you're having to check up, having to slow down, LMP2s in the way and stuff like that. You kind of just need a clear run to get away. So I've pushed it onto lap 7, and I'm doing 42.2s, and Carl just did a 43.4, and that's just about 1.2 seconds slower. So still, the race is scheduled to be about 18 laps. So, you know, at 1.2 seconds a lap, I'm really not going to be gaining as much as I would need for a pit stop. I believe a pit stop is like within about 38 seconds or in excess of like 38 seconds. So technically we need 2 seconds a lap, you know, and 2 seconds a lap is going to be pretty difficult if particularly the BMW can lap at around, I believe the BMW can lap in the 42s while still keeping your fuel ratio, your virtual energy ratio to 5.5, which is enough to make it towards the end. Now I'm at the end of lap 9, about to do another 42.1. Let's see the pace that Carl does, only 8 seconds behind, and we're 9 laps into the race. So it shows you how difficult it would be. You would probably have to lap in the 1-minute 40s consistently to stand a chance against someone who's pretty decent doing the no stopper. And of course that's going to be insanely difficult to keep up. Carl did a 43.0, so he was only 9/10 slower than us in the last lap. So that highlights how difficult it is. And you have to bear in mind, it is much easier to drive at your fuel limit than it is to drive at the actual limit of the car consistently over a longer time span. So you really have to focus when you're doing your laps. You need minimal distractions as possible, and that's why I said with the LMP2s in the race, it makes it 10 times more difficult, because of course when they lap you and stuff like that, you're going to lose a little bit of time. But this is my in lap. You can see we've managed to gap around 13 or so seconds. I think it's gonna be like 13.5 seconds by the time I have to pit, which of course is not enough time. So I'm into the pit lane, slow down, and I think I'm stopped for about 7 seconds in total. Though I believe the pit stop to be around 38 seconds, give or take a second here or there. Now let's say you're an esports driver, someone who is insanely fast, and you're lapping a second a lap quicker than what I was able to do in the BMW consistently. And let's say, you know, you kept your lap times at, I don't know, a 41.1, 41.0. Even at that speed, you still would have came out quite a huge chunk behind where Carl is right now. We're going to exit the pits, and Carl is going to end up around about 24 or so seconds, 24 and a half seconds in front of us, which is a huge gap. So even if you were a lot faster than what I was able to do, you know, you're still going to be coming out around about 8 or so seconds behind where Carl is. So it's a very, very difficult thing to achieve, to do the pit stop. And I do think there is some things that they could change, man. And the reason why I do say is unfair is because there isn't really a way to, you know, have a successful route to win the race by choosing to do this strategy. And I feel like if they did maybe alter the fuel usage just a little bit, alter the VE usage, maybe have it on 2.2 times instead of just 2, or take their LMPs out of the race and make it a 1 extra lap, which would mean people would have to save even more, hence their lap times would be a little bit slower. And I believe that the race would come down much closer at the end between the two different strategies. I personally think, you know, the strategy should be within 2 seconds by the end. So if my finishing time that I'm able to achieve without a pit stop should be within 2 seconds of my finishing time if I push and do make a pit stop, that's where I would feel like is considered maybe more of a even race. You can see Carl still 24 seconds ahead. Now he's going on to the last lap. If this was someone who was a lot faster than me, they would have to make up eight or so seconds in 1 lap. And bearing in mind, Carl's still got 5% fuel left, so he's done a great job with the fuel. Other people that has not done as good of a job, you can see I'm just overtaking them on the last lap because obviously they weren't as good at saving. Maybe they just didn't have the pace that Carl had, but Carl was a pretty quick driver. You can only think if he was racing against someone who was also an esports driver and they were doing the fuel saving strategy, they would also be very, very fast. They'd probably be maybe ahead of where Carl is. So you have to consider that, you know, if you put it like for like with 2 drivers at the same level, you've literally just got no chance whatsoever. Now, my solution, as I said, is either the race is a lap longer than what it's scheduled to be. Take the LMP2s out because they kind of decide how long the race is going to be. There was a race that we did the day before this, and Carl actually got a stop-go penalty because he ran out of fuel because the LMP2s were quite fast in that race, and it ended up going to 19 laps. And, you know, that would have been the perfect distance, but everybody pretty much saved 18 laps worth of fuel. Carl just happened to be a little bit quicker, and he never realized that he was going on to lap 19 without being lapped by the LMP2. So he ended up getting a stop and go penalty and running out of fuel. And I thought that would have been the perfect balance if there was 19 laps instead of the 18, or as I said, the times fuel, the times 2 needs to be slightly higher for the virtual energy, and that would make it, for me, that would make it a little bit more even. So Carl actually only finished about 12 seconds ahead of us because, again, he was actually going to end up going on to lap 19. So he had to slow down and wait for the LMP2 cars, which then allowed him to get lapped, which then made his race only 18 laps. So you can see he's finished down the road. His race time was a 31 minutes, 23 seconds. And of course, he lifted about 8 seconds on the last lap. So he lost quite a lot. He lost quite a lot on the last lap. Now, I've got the RF2 log analyzer app, which shows you all of the information from the race. And now this is from a race that I did when I did the no stopper. And you can see my lap times all throughout the race. And also you can see my fuel and virtual energy used on the right hand side, which shows roughly an average of about 5.4. 5.5 is around the sweet spot of how much you can actually use without losing time. And you can see on one lap, I managed to do on lap 4 a 42.9 while only using 5.5% of virtual energy. My finishing time was 31 minutes, 24 seconds, 0.8, which is pretty decent in the BMW. Now, let me show you what it was like when I tried to do the same race same strategy in some of the other cars. Now, this is me with the Aston Martin doing the exact same strategy, no stopper, and you can see our lap times are a lot slower, but look at my final finishing time, a 31.43.9, which is almost 20 seconds slower than what we did in the BMW. You can see our fuel usage is 5.5 and the lap times are a lot slower. You can basically get away with sort of doing 43s, late 43s, and get 5.5. But now I'm going to switch to the Ford, and now you can see in the Ford our final finishing time was a 31.46, which is again about 23 seconds slower than what we managed to achieve in the BMW, which shows you how good the virtual energy usage is with the BMW. It's a lot harder to save fuel and energy in some of the other cars than it is in the BMW for whatever reason. I'm gonna try it again, and I'm gonna try and literally ace it as best as I can, but so far what I can tell is the BMW is just way more adept at saving the virtual energy while still pumping in the fast lap times, which makes it again very, very uneven when it comes to doing this no stop race, because it just seems as if there literally is only really one car worth picking if you want to do the no stop strategy, man. And that's the issue, as well as it being, you know, favoring the cars doing no stoppers as opposed to making a pit stop. So there is some things they can balance up. Me personally, I feel like either you make it just a one car choice, so everyone has to use the BMW, or some way, somehow you level out the virtual energy between the cars, and also make the race one lap longer, or make the virtual energy percentage you need per lap slightly higher than ×2. And then I feel like it would push everything together, two different strategies together, and then I feel like the race will be a lot fairer. But tell me you guys' experience you've had in this race. I know a lot of people have complained about it. But anyway, guys, it's Kryptic TMG. Like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. And remember, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch on Fridays at 8 p.m. So don't miss it. We're going to be doing some reactions to everything to do with racing and sim racing. So yeah, I'll see you guys then. Peace.